happier. It's really cool to take everything I know about self-funding and bring technology into that space and be a part of the development and the building of a company as well.
Absolutely. The advancement of technology in the healthcare space is what's going to help propel it forward past where we sit right now, which is at the mercy of 4 or 5 major corporations. Welcome back to the Beards in Business Show. Today I have none other than Spencer Smith on with me today. Hey, Spencer has done an amazing job in the insurance industry and currently right now is serving as the Senior Vice President of Sales for PlanSight. He is also the host of Self-Funded with Spencer. He's got his own show there. So, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Anthony, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So to kind of kick off the show, we really want to let the audience know a little bit about who Spencer is, how you grew up, kind of, what made Spencer Smith into who he is today. So just kind of take us back a little journey.
Whew, man. Well, that's it. I'll try to keep it brief. What made me who I am? That's complicated. But no, man, I appreciate that. I'm a Texas guy, born and raised, born in Arlington, Texas, moved to Mansfield, Texas, which is just a little small town south of Arlington, and spent the first, 18, 19 years of my life in Texas. I did have a stop in Missouri where I played soccer in college at Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. But then as soon as I got the chance, I came back and I brought my, significant other, my wife, down with me because she was ready to get out. But, I'm a Texas guy at heart, soccer player the majority of my life up until college was done. And I didn't really know what to do after that. Wanted to figure myself out as you would, and did some acting, did some stand-up comedy, was working at the time, started getting into the insurance industry. And then I'm sure we'll touch on, more specifics about that. But I think like anybody else, I accidentally got into this space. And now 15 years later, I think I am intentionally staying in the space for the foreseeable future. And I couldn't be happier to do that. But awesome. I've got 2 little sisters and a wife and 2 children, and happily married for 10 years. Shout out to Courtney. And Brooklyn is my daughter. She's 4. And Sebastian is my son, and he's about to be 1 here in August.
Wow. So I know you have your hands full. Father of 4 myself, completely understand what you're going through right now. These are the funnest years of your life.
Yep.
With your kids. You can't play catch with them yet. Or maybe with a 4-year-old, maybe you're getting there, maybe kicking a soccer ball back and forth. Ball.
Yeah, we're doing a little soccer. Yep.
Yeah, I've got videos of my child at like 1.5 kicking a soccer ball goal, and it was awesome. So
yeah, man.
But those are fun times. So tell us a little bit about your soccer journey. I'm really interested in this, and I know other people will be too. Was it the competitive side of soccer? What was it about soccer that drove you?
Well, part of it's being 5'8". So I catered towards a sport that didn't require somebody to be tall, but played baseball going up as well. And then, started soccer, I think at about 8, baseball at the same time. Loved them both, was probably actually a little better at baseball as a pitcher. But when it came to high school, the seasons in Texas overlap where I had to choose one or the other. And I felt my future was probably better served in soccer. And I had a great decision. Ended up obviously playing in college and, ended up being pretty darn good for a period of time. But it was my passion, man. Some people have hobbies, some people have outlets. Literally, my thing, if I had a bad day or, fighting with my girlfriend in high school or whatever, I'd go on the soccer field and spend an hour just dribbling a ball and kicking it. And it was my Zen space. I told Anthony, or not Anthony, but Andy Neary on a podcast a couple months ago, like I still hear the ping of the ball, that thud of a soccer ball, the perfectly inflated soccer ball, the grass. It's funny, the kind of the visceral memories that you have about a sport that are so ingrained in who you are. I don't play anymore. I watch it when I can. Obviously, I'm about to be 39, so I think the ship has sailed there. But now I get a chance to hopefully encourage my daughter and my son to pursue it if they want to and live vicariously through them.
Well, you live in Dallas, Texas, so sports never stops in Dallas, Texas. You can be playing soccer, I think, till you're like 90 years old, I swear. There were some men's leagues out there.
I just don't want to be the guy getting an ACL injury or something and hobbling around on crutches when I'm 40. That's the main reason I don't play anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty tough on the body, huh?
Yeah, it is. I managed, I had injuries throughout college, but I managed to come away healthy on the other side of quitting. I have good knees, I have good ankles. And so for playing it for 15 some odd years at a pretty high level, I feel very fortunate that I didn't have anything catastrophic. So knock on wood, I'm gonna lace or tie them up, right as they say, and just move on from it.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about high school. Where did you go to high school there in Arlington?
So actually, I went to high school in Mansfield, which is
Oh,
it
Mansfield.
borders on Arlington. They're
Sure.
essentially the same town. But yeah, so grew up in Mansfield, and suburban town, right? No real industry. It was just the suburbs, and we had one high school when I was in high school. Now they've got five. So it's exploded like most of North Texas. But my parents still live there actually, which is kind of neat to get to go back, once a month or so and see them. But it's a good place. It was a great place to grow up. Did the public school thing, had an actually great experience in public school. I know it's being demonized nowadays, but I loved it. And, still have friends to this day that I met in high school that we stay in touch 20 some odd years later. So can't say enough about, growing up there. It was a good time.
Yeah, we have a unique generation. I'm 38 years old, you're 39 years old. And so we're not quite millennials. We're not quite Generation X. We're kind of that hybrid in between. And, the way that we grew up was very different than a lot of other people because we were being introduced to technology. Lots of, television, video games were starting to come out. This industry was starting to come alive with the internet in high school. And so we kind of saw the world differently. And we were also affected by 9/11 a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was our freshman sophomore year in college, and that's kind of your foundational pieces of where life really starts to happen as an adult. So I always ask that. I grew up in North Texas as well, and so I just tried to get a little bit of a feedback on that. I'm a little further up north in the Sherman-Denison area of a little small town called Tom Bean, but lived in McKinney for about 10 years. And so,
well, I was gonna say, if you told me that, I forgot, and I apologize. I live in Prosper, which is just right next to McKinney, and Sherman, like when I lived in Mansfield, Sherman sounded like Oklahoma. Now, literally, it's 20 minutes away from me. So it's kind of weird how that works.
Yeah, crazy thing. We used to play Prosper in sports as a 2A school, and I think Prosper is now 5A. If I'm not
five or
mistaken, 4 or 5.
six.
Yeah.
I mean, six didn't exist when we were growing up, but now there's 6A, and I think that, it's crazy, man. But that's what I'm saying. This part of the country and this part of the state in particular has just experienced explosive growth over the last 2 decades, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon either.
Absolutely. So, hey, as we segue into your business journey a little bit, kind of take us back down the road and potentially maybe even your first career or first job and then into your career.
Yeah, man, would love to do that. So I think I was your typical guy, like I said, didn't have any intention of getting into this space. And I remember pretty vividly after I moved out for college and then came back to Texas, my parents had given my room away to my sister because they were sharing rooms. So it was like, well, you can't live here anymore, so you need to figure it out. So I actually stayed with my late grandmother at the time, God bless her, Grandma Betty, and she welcomed me into the house and said, yeah, stay here as long as you need until you find a job. So I remember being on the internet, which was still relatively in its infancy in terms of utility for job search. But I was going on job forums and finding postings and applied to God knows how many jobs, but found a job with Liberty Mutual of all places as a national market claims adjuster. So they would hire kids out of school and just send you off to Boston for 10 days and say, do your training and come back and here's a book of business to manage. And so it was cool. It was a great transition into the real world, as they say. But I found out pretty quickly, like I didn't want to argue with lawyers over people slipping and falling at Red Roof Inn, so it's like, I got to do something else. And was able to parlay a relationship into a job at Benefit Mall, which was actually, I spent 6 years in my 20s at Benefit Mall, and a great organization. Was a financial analyst for them. I've always been a numbers guy. And then had the chance to move on and wanted to be more customer facing. So I joined a brokerage called Hayes Companies. And that's like, I was telling you this beforehand, like that's where my career into self-funding started. And so I kind of bisect my career before and after that moment. But that's where I got introduced to stop loss and introduced to, self-funded claims projections and all this stuff. And it took me about 3 months to catch on. And then I realized like I was hooked. Like that's all I wanted to talk about. That was all I was interested in. So got a chance to sell stop loss for Sun Life, which I did that for a number of years. wholesaled stop loss for AmWins, and then now present day on the technology side, still doing a little bit in stop loss, but not much as I'd like with PlanSight, and couldn't possibly be happier with where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. Hey, I appreciate that. That was pretty quick and to the point.
Yeah,
so
it was a lot to cover, but I tried to be as
yeah,
brief
no,
as I
you
could.
did a great job. So when you were at Benefits Mall, you were primarily fully insured, correct? There was no self-funded really going on.
Well, I mean, they would do mostly small group. I mean, they had a large group segment, which of them was really anything 50 plus. But yeah, they had a department that was self-funding, and I wasn't in that department, so I didn't even know about it, quite honestly, while I was there.
What was it like to find out about self-funding?
I can say it was eye-opening, because I remember as I was transitioning over to Hayes Companies, but I still had my 2 weeks notice at Benefit Mall, so I was still working. I was coming back to talk to the finance guys, and I'm like, have you guys heard about this self-funding thing? Do you know about this? And I was telling them all the, the value of it and why it's a good thing. And I remember them going, yeah, we have this department, but we don't really pay attention to it. And that was a long time ago. They obviously do now. But I remember that light bulb moment went off with me right away. And the one thing I think that's pretty consistent about me is if I latch onto something, like I go full bore into it. And so that's when I knew. I was like, this is what I want to do. And it took a while, like I said, to get up to speed to know what I was doing, but I knew right away that I wanted to do something in this space.
Sure, especially you were coming from the P&C side, right? So where you were looking at claims adjustments on liabilities.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so numbers, everything was risk. And then you get into the benefit space and it's like, well, we don't have to worry about risk, right?
Yeah.
We just,
you just pass it on to that carrier. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing else matters, right? And then getting your eyes open behind the curtain, essentially, to what a fully insured is really experiencing on their own block. And then how that relates to an individual business, I bet was pretty amazing.
Well, and I can tell you, I'm just as passionate, if not more, about it now. The more I know, the more I learn. I think the more that I realize I don't know hardly anything when it comes to everything that's out there. And so every conversation I have, conversations with you, conversations with other vendors or people in the space, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, that's great. Now I've got something new. I'm like a dog that you give a bone and I just gnaw on every single day. But, I hope that the passion that I have for the industry conveys when I talk about it, the enthusiasm, and it's genuine. I love self-funding and stop loss, and I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, it's funny. I believe you had Rachel with the HIM on your show not too long ago, and you guys were digging through the muck of PBMs and just how much is really going on behind the scenes. And it was interesting to watch, because I was like, man, he's like digging in and like absorbing it like a sponge, right? And so that was really fun to watch.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now currently with PlanSight.
Yeah, I'd love to. I appreciate the opportunity. We are in a space that's being created. I mean, the best way to, I guess, summarize what PlanSight is we are an RFP platform. We're a technology that employee benefits brokers use to better manage the workflow around an RFP. Today it's manual, it's PDFs and Excel and email, and even though there's a lot of technology being infused in the insurance space, for whatever reason, this is a part of the business that's very important, that's been neglected. So whatever you want to call this category, we just think of it as RFP management or workflow management. We help brokers manage that process from start to finish, that, setup, distribution, negotiation with the carriers, presenting to their client. One of the most vulnerable times that they have is that presentation that they lock in time and sit there and show their client and realize, oh crap, I've got 5 Excel errors on my spreadsheet when I do so. So we're just, we're born out of 2 employee benefits brokers that understood and identified this problem and sold off their practices to literally address it. And I joined about 2 years ago as SVP of sales, managed a pilot in Texas with our first client. And it was brought on primarily because they wanted to make sure that our self-funded solution, our stop loss solution, was best in class. And they said, hey, we think you're our guy. And so they were very gracious enough to offer me the job. And I couldn't, like I said, couldn't be happier. It's really cool to take everything I know about self-funding and bring technology into that space and be a part of the development and the building of a company as well.
Absolutely. The advancement of technology in the healthcare space is what's going to help propel it forward past where we sit right now, which is at the mercy of 4 or 5 major corporations. And the technology that you're talking about specifically is going to assist these brokers in a way that they could never do on their own, more than likely, right? It's speeding it up so much faster, because right now, everything that a broker's in charge of, or a consultant's in charge of, it's almost too much, even with all multiple account managers and everything that's going on. So could you talk a little bit more to the technology
Sure.
Emphasis in the healthcare space?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that you probably experience as well is the seasonal nature of RFPs, right? 60-70% of the business is 1/1. So everybody's scrambling in the last half of the year. They're maybe staffing up in the last half of the year just to manage that, that workflow. And then maybe they let those people go. And so there's this constant fluctuation of headcount and expense, and then all the time that's associated with the RFP. And so what we've done is sought to apply technology to build efficiencies around probably the most broken part of the process. I talked to a technology broker the other day, and they have really sophisticated technology for something else that they do, but they're using email and spreadsheet and PDF for this part. And they're like, well, we know there's something better out there. We didn't build it ourselves. And so we've talked to some brokers that have attempted to do this. And I think the one thing that maybe sets us apart versus a broker trying to do this is, we're a technology company first. We just happen to be in the benefits space. They're benefits brokers trying to enter into the technology space, and they realize pretty quickly that it's way more expensive than you thought, and it takes way longer to develop than you thought. And so what we've encountered is some of the brokers that engage us have attempted to do it before, unfortunately failed to some degree, and then have spent a bunch of money to realize they shouldn't have done it, on their own in the first place. And so I think that's what positions us to be a better solution, because we're broker agnostic, we're carrier agnostic, and we're a tech company, not a brokerage trying to do it.
Yeah, I think that's what speaks a lot to me too, is because you came from the EB space. So you understand fundamentally what those brokers are going through. You understand the processes and systems, and those technology companies are the ones that tend to do the best in the industry. You take people from an industry, they're not in that industry anymore, and they're only focused on the technology space to solve the problems, right? We should all be problem solvers. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us as well.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And we like I said, we're born out of 2 brokers that had 20 years of practice. Of course, our developers, not many people that are software developers understand benefits. And so you have to communicate the subtleties of insurance language and jargon. But at the end of the day, you have people that speak benefits, you have people that speak code. We talk to each other, and we apply knowledge both ways in order to solve the actual benefits problem through technology. So like I said, it's fun. It's fun seeing things happen in real time, where you have an idea and you go, well, I think this is how we solve it. You pitch it to the developers, they put it in a project, and 2 weeks later, it's actually live on a website and the solution is there. It's fun. And it's something I'm not used to, working maybe some big organizations and working through some of the bureaucracy that comes with that. They move very slowly, and for good reason, because they're big companies. But now I'm in a company that's flat and nimble, and we can come to market with solutions very rapidly. And that's just fun to be a part of, because you feel like you're solving it in real time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So cool. So let's talk a little bit about the beard and just kind of the journey of the beard. It's kind of one of the funnest parts of the show.
My journey is probably as epic as your journey, man. And kudos, I complimented you before, but your beard looks epic, and it's awesome, man. And I love the mustache and all of it. So and kudos for you for identifying a cool kind of niche as well to build this off of. But my beard story is probably not as cool as yours. I was the guy shaving my mustache maybe when I was 14 years old, because I was only getting the stubble right there, and you looked like you had just a kind of a dirty upper lip. But my father has had a mustache literally his entire life, and so I grew up. I mean, I think since maybe his early 20s, and he shaved it except for one time. And I was like 10 years old, and he walks in the room, and I'm like, who is this stranger in my house? Like, you almost like, I don't recognize you. And they're like, Dad. So I think maybe that's part of, ingrained in who I am. But, I early on was shaving every day. You were kind of asking about what the perception and how it's changed over time. I was shaving every day because my expectation was, in the insurance industry, that's what you're supposed to do. So dealing with all the ingrown hairs and all the razor burn and stuff like that, hating it. And then I realized over time you could start to get away with a little bit more, and it wasn't necessarily thought of as less professional. So, you know, worked its way from stubble to, you know, beard to now. I literally did grow this out just for you. So this is probably about 2 weeks longer than I normally would have kept it, but I'm like, I got to have the beard for the episode. But actually, now that I've gotten to this point, man, I kind of like it. And I'm not so sure I might want to keep going. I powered through the hard stages and now I'm kind of digging it again. Have you noticed though, have you experienced like a shift in the way that people perceive beards in our industry? I presume you probably have.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when getting into the industry, same way, just you didn't feel like you could really have facial hair. Some trainers and mentors of mine in the beginning were always clean shaven, or expected that of their mentorees, I guess you would call them. Because it was, you know, it was more considered more professional. And the people that were mentoring me were a generation of baby boomers. And so that was how they grew up. And so that's what their expectation was. And in the financial services industry, it was a very important thing to make sure that you looked tip top shape and very professional. And I think what you talked about with those first 2 weeks, right? Sometimes it can, when you grow a beard, it doesn't come in the best way, right? And so you kind of have to get through that stage. It's like, okay, I'm on vacation for a week, so I can get it to where it looks manageable and then move forward with it. And so, yes, I have seen a little bit. I've seen a huge change in our industry, probably since COVID. Many people are starting to grow facial hair. But I do also know of other people when they get, you know, Employee Benefit Magazine, you know, Broker of the Year or a photo shoot with Forbes, you know, shaving it off and saying I had to be clean shaven for this, which was interesting to me, right?
Yeah. I'll commit this to you. If Forbes ever approaches me for a photo shoot, I'll not shave my face for that. Just to stick it to this notion that you got to be clean shaven all the time. But I think you're right, man. Just casualness of attire, of dress. I had this podcast and another podcast today, so obviously you got the jacket on as well. But I think you dress for the day. You dress for what you're actually doing that day. If you're on camera, cool. If you're not, T-shirt and jeans is probably fine. It really just depends on the moment, the environment that you're entering into. And so I think the beard probably in and of itself, though, that's way more acceptable now, almost like the tattoos in our industry as well. Absolutely. It's like, you don't have to hide tattoos anymore. People really don't care. Same with facial hair. And if you look good in a beard and you look better in a beard, then keep it. I mean, why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, as long as you're maintaining it, taking care of it, it looks professional. A lot of people like to keep it tight like you have it right now, because it's easier to manage. You know, there's not a whole lot of work that goes into it, right? The longer it gets, the more work it is. And, you know, I made this joke once before, is when I go to the store, I wake up in the morning on a Saturday, my daughter comes in, she wakes me up and she's like, donuts? And I'm like, okay, let's go get donuts. If I don't go in and fix myself up a little bit, and I just kind of
roll
walk out the door, right? Like you can't go in with like you can go out with a messy hair, right? Be like, yeah, you know, I just came out of bed, I didn't have to fix it. You can't do that with a beard when it's longer. You just can't, because everybody looks at you like you're crazy looking.
Well, then that's when you get a level of appreciation, right? Like it's part of the commitment to the lifestyle of it, but also it's like you grew it out for a reason, and you also want it to look good. So I used to have longer hair, and the longer your hair gets, obviously the more you've got to take care of it as well. And like you said, it's like that or throwing a hat. But like if you're in it, you're committed to it, then it's almost like somewhat of a small burden to your life, but it's worthwhile if you really enjoy having one.
Absolutely. Wouldn't do anything else.
Yep.
So cool. Really appreciate you taking us through that journey. When did you start growing your beard, you said?
I was trying to think back. This is probably about 6 weeks of growth, but with a little trim, with a haircut, and obviously keeping the neckline tight. But yeah, this I don't know if you can see, but I've got like 4 different colors in my beard that I didn't realize. I've got red and blonde, and unfortunately some grays, you know, that are popping up as well. But you think, oh, you have brown hair, and then you grow out facial hair, and you realize like there's a lot of different colors that come into play.
They grow out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. Like I've got a lot of white coming in. I really enjoy it. I've always had a baby face, so I always looked pretty young in the face, even though I was balding. So it kind of was that, you know, counterbalance to looking a little bit older. But the gray, I like it. I like it coming in and just letting it go, take over the whole thing. Like, I'll be cool when it's all gray.
I'm literally my main motivation why I keep at least stubble is the same problem. I look like a baby when I'm clean shaven. And I remember I tell a story sometimes where I was sitting down as a early employee at Hayes Companies. I was doing financials with a client of theirs, and I was sitting in this meeting with our practice leader, probably about 15 minutes, not really saying anything, waiting for my turn. And he turns it over to me. He's like, Spencer, all right, present the financials now. And the client representative herself was like, hold on a second. Like, I thought you were an intern. Like, I literally thought I didn't expect you to be speaking. I thought you were just like shadowing. And I told her, I was like, I'm 31 years old. I'm the senior benefit analyst. But it was an eye-opening moment to me. That's like, maybe if you want to, I was a little bit, I guess, of a victim of ageism, the other direction. And so I've been keeping some stubble, a lot of for that reason as well. So I don't look like a child. Not a bad problem to have, but sometimes it suggests that you don't have enough experience or you don't know what you're talking about,
No, that's a great point. Absolutely. So, hey, as we kind of get into this next section, we like to talk about what's going on right now. We know that you have your show, so if we could speak a little bit to that, and anything else that you'd like to discuss, that would be great.
Well, cool, man. No, I appreciate it. So the show, the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast, I think I just shot my 20th episode. So
congratulations.
Thanks, man. I started it on a whim. I just happened to come to this workspace that had a podcast studio, and it was one of those things like, I always wanted to do this. You're being presented an opportunity to do it. So if you don't do it, what's wrong with you? So I just dived into it head first, and fortunately, people keep saying yes and coming on, and I feel like getting some traction, and it's also something I look forward to. Honestly, I'm sure you do the same, where it's like, I get to talk to cool people. I get to learn about them. I get to highlight cool people on my podcast. I also get to educate myself, which is a nice byproduct of it as well. And it's indirectly, I mean, don't dismiss this, but it's indirectly a kind of a prospecting tool for PlanSight, because they sponsor the podcast and all that stuff. So eventually people come and look up what we do, and we've gotten leads and clients from it as well. So it's a nice resource as a way to give away free information, not really directly talk about PlanSight, but eventually they make their way back to us.
Yeah, it's a great branding play, right? And what I really like about ours, we're a little bit different than yours. I love that PlanSight is sponsoring yours, and you're able to use it for those other purposes, but being able to repurpose the content and take little segments out of it, and just, there could be a company out there that you meet with and they're like, man, you know what? I actually interviewed somebody on my podcast that spoke directly to this, and taking those clips and saying, hey, listen to this 2-minute segment. Here's a full episode, right? There's just so much there. The setup that you have there is very interesting. So you said it's like a co-working space that already had it built in.
Yeah, so think of it like the WeWorks that people know, or I don't know what some other ones are out there, but it's called Venture X. And so same model in terms of, who's utilizing the space, but each one of their locations apparently has a dedicated room that they built a podcast studio, and kudos to them for recognizing the opportunity there. And so what they do is like, it's an attractive tool for somebody that's looking to join the space, really, really cheap, honestly. Turnkey solution. It's a dedicated space that solely is used for podcasting, and it comes with somebody to do sound design and editing and everything, as you're sitting in there. So it's legit. If you get a chance to come to Dallas, I want you to, next time, definitely come on the podcast, and I'll show you the studio. But it's top notch. And again, it was like one of those things, like, if you don't take advantage of this, you're a dummy. And so that's right. Definitely why I dived into it head first.
That's cool. Yeah. You said you're about 20 episodes in, 20 recorded.
Yeah. So I shot the 20th, this actually about an hour ago, with Benjamin Prinzing of Rover Analytics.
Oh, yeah.
If you know Benjamin, he was down doing something for their, he's expanding and growing and all sorts of things. And so he came down here, and he was number 20, although I think I've released, 15's coming out tomorrow. So I got some backlog, which I'm sure you probably do as well. And I try to release one a week just to stay on that schedule in case I can't book somebody for a couple weeks. I'm not playing catch up,
Sure, you get really busy and you just can't get people on, or schedules don't match up or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Very cool. Awesome. So that's really cool. This isn't your first time to do a show either, so that probably helps a little bit. You've done shows before, and I've watched those on YouTube. They're amazing, and there's just so much detail that you can glean from that. And so I know that people are gaining a lot out of this show as well. So we'll put in the show notes, we'll put links to all of the videos and things like that for you as well.
I appreciate it.
And then you've also got PlanSight that's growing very rapidly, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, yeah, I mean, so I'd love if anybody wants to get in touch with me. Our primary target market is, of course, the retail agent. Typically, those agents that have a decent presence either in a one geographic location or a region. Of course, because we're contracting with carriers and we're onboarding and training them as well. So it's helpful as we expand into new markets. We have leverage and we have a good partnership there. But PlanSight is. I want to say we're growing at an astonishing pace, but it's one of those like good problems that you're having where you're trying to keep up with servicing the growth, which is great when you go raise money and scale and do all that fun stuff. But it's been fun watching it slowly reach that hockey stick moment, if you will, of growth over this last, let's say, 6 months. And buckle your seatbelt. I feel like telling myself every day that who knows what the next couple of years are going to look like, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything new that PlanSight's doing right now that you'd like to give a little shout to?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of it is technical within our system around the broker processes, but we developed an ACA tool, which we didn't have in the marketplace before, which is kind of neat because some brokers will utilize a tool for a small group only. And then we have our underwritten large group segment, which is what primarily we focused on. And so some of our partners were like, well, you've got to give us this tool as well, or we're not going to have two systems. So we got compelled to go down market, but actually it's ended up being one of our best solutions, quite frankly. And, it's a leader for conversations for us to really drive business up market, which is where we want to be. But that's probably the most significant thing that's happened. And on top of that, benefit point integration. Shout out to the folks at Vertifor. Benefit Point is one of the biggest AMS systems in the country, and we've built a upstream and downstream integration and API with them, so we can pull data in, we can push it back to them for their benchmarking and broker store client data, and so that's really going to compel us in the future to do more of those, and I think it's going to reinforce what PlanSight truly is, which is a platform and not just an RFP tool, and so we'll connect to Employee Navigator, hopefully soon, iWave soon, a lot of those other systems that really, again, entrench us with those relationships and reduce a lot of that duplicate effort that the brokers are doing, keying in data, in 5 different places for the same group. I think PlanSight's going to resolve a lot of that redundancy for sure.
Well, we all know that if you can remove service off of the broker, things can move a lot faster.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
absolutely. So,
yeah, and so we don't want to replace people, but we certainly want to augment folks. And you talked about earlier on, like all the things that a broker has to manage. All we want to do is free you up to consult, to analyze your group, make better recommendations. But we don't want to take the place of people or eliminate people. We want to make people have a little bit more fun at their job and spend less time doing a lot of the busy work that they have to do.
Man, that's a great slogan right there.
Yeah, I feel like I was trying to slide into like hopefully that the good sound bite or whatever, man. But it's true though. I mean, really, that's at the end of the day, that's what we are, and that's what we're solving for these brokers is freeing up time. That's
awesome. Well, hey Spencer, really appreciate you being on the show. Again, we will put everything in the show notes, and we'll be releasing this here in a few weeks. And so, appreciate you coming on.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Sure.